Hello. This could possibly be the last video I record from this location because the business is moving. The place that I've worked for 5 years is moving, and I am still working here right now. I haven't made any decisions. I am starting a business with my wife to just, I don't know, do something for fun. See, it's not even really about seeing what comes from that, it's just about doing it. So that's happening. And I don't know that I really have all that much to say. I just kind of felt like documenting what could be the last time that I film one of these videos here, film anything here. It's just a sort of a farewell, a send-off to what was a pretty significant period of experience for me. And I do feel things, that's not the right way to say it. I was going to say things are shifting. Things are not shifting. I am shifting. My perspective, my awareness, my experience, my understanding is shifting from what was intellectual with some experience, but what kind of got caught in concept and intellect and thought. It's becoming much more real, much more embodied, much more of an actual experience. I'm looking at the clock and seeing that it says 14414. And that feels nice. It has I don't have a lot of words. Embracing suffering has really opened things up for me. And realizing that that's been kind of a critical component that I've dipped a toe in before, but it wasn't a true embrace because it wasn't a true opening. It was a momentary opening. And that's not a judgment of any of that. That's just saying what it was. A momentary opening. But I didn't have the confidence to sustain it. I hadn't reached a place of really true surrender enough to sustain that opening. I had to suffer more. I had to be more deeply exhausted. I had to really, really run and exhaust all the internal resources I had in the fleeing of suffering to experience for myself, because words don't teach, right? Experience teaches. And I had to experience for myself the truth that suffering is inescapable, in order to finally surrender to it, to let it consume me, and in its wrapping around me, realize that it was holding me, not in restraint, not as a form of bondage, not as a prisoner is held. It was holding me tenderly, gently, lovingly. In fact, this sensation, this force, this energy that I had been running from so desperately for so long. All of this life experience, certainly, probably all of my life experiences. I finally lost the will to run, and in losing that will and allowing it to simply encompass me and for myself to fall into this without grabbing for a foothold any longer, without trying to climb out of it, really just letting it happen, accepting, because I had tried every exit, I had tried everything to run from it, accepting that there is no running from this. I had to reach this dead end for the mind to lose its grip enough that I finally truly fell into it, and I fell into the waiting arms. What looked like this terrifying monster, this empty void, this abyss. I am using these words with the awareness that they have connotations, they have connections to spiritual concepts. I am not saying one way or another whether this is what that's talking about, those things are talking about. I can only use them as accurate descriptors of this experience. Falling into this place and finally not putting up a fight against the sensations of suffering, I have found myself embraced by it. And all I had to do was lay down the weapon. It is simple. It is not exactly easy, but it is also natural. And I believe this is just a part of the natural process. This is not some feat that I have accomplished. This has nothing to do with identity. In fact, there's no doing that has happened here. This is simply the unfolding of a natural process that is taking place for all human beings, and in fact, I think for all life across this planet. It is an amazing thing that while ego, or identification with the conceptual self, is the cause of suffering, not pain, but suffering, which is a different thing. Pain happens naturally, but the suffering generated by the conflation of oneself with this concept and the resultant resistance against everything, that's different. And so the suffering generated by egoic identification is in fact its own destroyer. So the generation of suffering is really, really not a problem. And I don't know how to even emphasize or accurately state how much not a problem it is. It is so not a problem. It is so a part of a natural process. And that natural process is unfolding. Suffering is not only not a problem, it's not bad, it's not dangerous, and in fact, it is beautiful. And I don't mean, I mean point blank. I don't mean, oh, suffering is beautiful for serving some other purpose, for lending some meaning to something. No. I don't mean suffering is beautiful because it is beautiful in itself. Not as a comparison, not even for being contrast, although that is certainly a valuable and delicious experience. It is beautiful. It is divine. It is delicious. It is bliss. There is really genuinely no difference. And this is not a conceptual mind trick. This is not saying something to try to make it true. This has been the experience. This is just reporting on the experience. This is laying eyes on something and saying, oh my God, you guys, you got to see this. It's glowing. It's radiant. It's breathtaking. It's awe-inspiring. This, suffering. It's so good. It's so good. No, not because of some story of martyrdom. No, it's not that it adds anything to you. It doesn't add anything to you, nor does it take anything from you. That's not what this is about. It can't. Nothing can. Removed from story, removed from concept, the direct, actual experience of what we have called suffering is purely sensation. Everything is. All of these things that we see and talk about, these experiences, they have no inherent reality of their own. Nothing exists except in your experience of it. Wealth does not exist. Poverty does not exist. Goodness, badness do not exist. Joy and suffering, as we know them to be in this experience, they have no separate reality. Nothing does. Everything exists by your experience of it. They have no separate reality, no objective reality, and they have no inherent meaning. There is no meaning in any of these things, in any experience. What is meaningful is your experiencing. What is meaningful is your experiencing. And so there is only sensation and sensing. That's it. And these are like the two eyes of being. There is this undefined source, font, ocean, void, whatever you want to call it. There's this undefined, unlimited pool. To even put any word on it, it kind of defeats the purpose. It really can't be talked about because it's undefined. But this being, essence, primordial essence, it can really only be described as free. It's a freedom that is beyond. It is the freedom that is so free that it can allow, it can contain, it can freely engage in the experience of bondage. And from this living place, that is no place, from this pure undefinition emerges all apparent duality. But just like two hands, while they are distinct from one another, they are not separate. There is no separate reality to them. They exist in the experiencing of one another. And so sensation, which is form, which is what we would call form, the sensation, the phenomena, is in fact alive. It is in fact very much alive, very much conscious. It is every bit as alive and conscious as the formless awareness, which is the sensing aspect. And so this is the dance, the eternal dance, these two aspects of the one self that are sort of like two eyes or two hands. I like hands a little bit better. They can do a little more than eyes can. They are like two hands that have predilections towards a certain behavior. They have strong desires for mutual things. So if the right hand has a strong desire, it would be to sense. It just naturally is a sensing element, and it has this strong desire to sense. It has a strong desire to hold. And so you can already see that there is they overlap and they work together in these really beautiful ways. The holding is a receptive element, but the sensing is kind of a probing element. On the other side, the left hand, it wants to be held. It wants to be held, which is a sort of probing, right? It wants to be received, but also it is sensation. This is the sensational. I'm struggling to describe this accurately, and I think I'm failing in my sort of analogy, but where one wants to be held, the other wants to hold, and in the allowance of this, in the allowance of sensation to flow in to sensing, sensation realizes that it is being sensed. And as sensation is allowed to flow into the sensing realizes too that it is sort of extending and wrapping. It's receiving, but it's also wrapping. That's this motion. And so it's recognized that in holding, one is also held. In being held, one is also holding. They happen at the same time. This is an experiential understanding that is really challenging to express in words. There is within us, emerging from us, the strong desire to experience sensation. And that is what all of this is. This is where the strongest sensation lives. And to meet the intensity of this sensation, we have sharpened awareness. Similarly, this is where awareness becomes the most intense. Intense sensation, intense awareness equals intense pleasure. That's what this is about. It's for the joy of it. It is for the joy, the good feeling of loving. It's not about a result. Creation happens, growth happens, expansion happens as a direct result of this, yes, but it's not about that. That's just what it is. It is about the desire of sensation to be sensed, and the desire of sensing to receive sensation. And just how exquisite that continuous union is. And in fact, the uniting and then the gentle sort of coming apart for there to be reunion again. And so for this sort of ebb and flow of sensation to occur, sensation in awareness, for sensation to flow into awareness and then sort of subside and then return and subside. That feels good. And it's everywhere in nature. It is the tide. It is the changing of days. It is the in-breath and the out-breath. It is this eternal dance that is done for the pleasure of it. And because it is simply natural. And seen clearly, all sensation is equivalent in its delicacy, in its beauty, in its intensity, in its deliciousness. Intensity maybe not the right word, because it can certainly be more or less intense, but in it's exquisiteness. There is positive and negative sensation, and it is easier for ego to receive the positive sensational experience, but also to an extent, it limits even that. It has a threshold there. It can be more challenging to receive the negative sensations, but for some people too, this can actually be easier. Just depends on the conditioning. What's important is that ego places a threshold. It places a threshold. This is as much experience either direction as it will allow itself to take pleasure in, as it will allow you to feel pleasure in. And anything beyond that becomes frightening and wreathed in some sort of shame. And so there's an aversion there. And all I'm interested in, and all this is about, is relaxing and expanding the threshold of sensation that I allow to be pleasurable to me, until it includes all sensation, positive, negative, as intense either direction as I can reach. In fact, I am stretching to include more and more and more, to allow all sensation to be pleasurable to me, because it is to the being that I am, truly, And it is only ego that sort of stands in the way of this, but even that is not a problem, and it's not a bad thing. Because a part of this process is a building up of pressure. See, if I reach a threshold on one side or the other, immediately there begins to be a buildup of pressure. I reach this place that I'm afraid to go past, but because I'm not going past it, suffering starts to happen. Suffering starts to build up. There's a compression taking place, a compacting. I reach the edge of this threshold, and I'm aware I'm bumping up against it, and I just don't know, I don't understand, or I'm too afraid. I'm too afraid to lean into it. So the misery starts, the suffering starts, and eventually it overpowers me in some capacity. Either it wholly overpowers me and I collapse into it, and now I'm open and I'm embracing experience. I'm embracing the sensation because I have no willpower not to. Or it incites some kind of anger. It excites me this other direction. And in the embracing of that sensation, I find a momentum that I didn't have before, and I am able to travel beyond that barrier. But one way or another, meeting a barrier means I am sure to travel past it. The limitation promises its own destruction. And it's all a part of the game, this exquisite tension and release, tension and release, arising and subsiding. It's all this riding this wave and just accepting it at any point, and really giving up trying to understand what's happening. Because if I'm trying to understand what's happening, I am not experiencing it. And all of the good feeling, and all of the understanding too, but really the good feeling, which is what I want. All of the good feeling is in just experiencing. Understanding, which is usually conceptual. If I'm trying to understand, I'm doing it. I'm bringing the energy up here. I'm not embodied. I'm not experiencing the sensation of what is. All kinds of incredible knowledge comes from that direct experience, but it's knowledge that is beyond words. It's beyond the mind. And it's really kind of just extra. It really isn't relevant to the whole experience. It's just sort of baked into it. What I'm wanting is the good feeling, and the good feeling is found in opening to the sensation, in opening myself to the experience of the sensation of what is. Point blank, period. And as I have embraced suffering more deeply, I have also embraced joy more deeply, and realized that there is no difference between these things. All experience is equivalent. All experience is valued. All experience is blissful in opening to receive it. The sensation of receiving sensation is blissful. That is experiential knowledge. Suffering is a great doorway. Suffering now is the way in. Where in the past, suffering could be ignored a lot more easily. It may not seem like it. Things were pretty, heavy in terms of survival in the past, but we didn't have such a developed ego either. We weren't carrying around this internal sort of burden in our confusion of our place in the world and what we're doing here. We weren't thinking so much. We weren't separating ourselves so much from reality. So while there were heavy things like death and violence and disease taking place, yes, we weren't so far removed from nature. We were still very aware of nature and its love for us. And it was easier to focus on that. We didn't yet have enough intense, inescapable suffering to be faced with the experiential knowledge of its inescapability. And so we weren't really pushed into this blooming yet. Some people inherently understood that it was available. And so there were bloomings here and there. There were awakenings here and there. And a lot of people were able to follow this path of really just focusing on beauty, focusing on nature, focusing on peace. It was much more possible to live a full life cycle, where some suffering happened, but it really wasn't enough to push you, to catalyze you. And so you could just kind of float along. I'm gonna have to sneeze. Excuse me. Thank you. I heard to bless you somewhere. So we weren't pushed into awakening. It just wasn't time. It wasn't time yet. It was possible, it was available, but it was a much more slow and challenging path, really. It took a long time. It took a long time to get to a deeper understanding, an experiential understanding. For some people it was natural. For a very few, a handful of people, they just they came and they got it. They came to get it and they got it. But for most of humanity, this is the time. This is what it's been building up to. And again, that is a very natural thing. This is a natural process that is in fact reflected in nature, all over nature, like every natural process is. Competition. Ego is competitive, right? So there's this egoic drive, and the ego is about hierarchy, it's about proving itself, it's about competing, it's about gathering as much resources for itself that it can sort of stand on the pile of and defend as it can. And that's natural, and that's the way of ego, and this is how life began on this planet, at least as far back as I'm just going to start with aquatic life. But initially there's this period of abundant resources and intense competition. This is ecological study. And in that time period, There's incredible competition, and they're gathering up all the resources, and it's known as the colonization period of an ecosystem. And then at a certain point, the resources are dwindling. They're not able to be reproduced fast enough to support this population that has boomed and support continued competition in the way that it's been enacted. And so something interesting happens. Evolution happens. And it depends on your interpretation, how you see this. You could say that the competition led to the evolution. Really what's happening, in the way that it's being interpreted now, and the way that I understand it, is that an escape from competition is what drove evolution, is the evolutionary tract itself. Things were going this direction, this is the direction of competition. They really couldn't get any higher. Competition really couldn't continue. And so, in order to remove themselves from this very dog-eat-dog, vicious competitive atmosphere, life forms branched out. Things from the ocean came onto the land. They moved somewhere else. They found a different way. And in their movement, they brought with them the desire, having just left this competitive atmosphere, the desire for symbiosis, the desire for cooperation and not competition. The understanding that competition, unchecked, that it just continues and we all end up losing because of this. So we're going to stop playing the game that's competitive, and we're going to play a cooperative game instead, because that's what we want, because that's what feels good, actually. And so things branch out, life branches out. Instead of making a vertical move, it moves laterally. And so plants on the land began to follow this, animals on the land began to follow this. And we've had a lot of this kind of movement happening over time. And so competition and suffering, kind of in the same category. Increased competition is a time of increased suffering. The increased suffering leads us to sort of make a lateral move. And we've been able to kind of keep nudging ourselves over that way. I do think there is an embrace of suffering in there. But that it hasn't been such a dramatic thing because it wasn't so intense. What I'm trying to get at is there's been a build-up. There's been a building up. Everything has increased in intensity. It was easier to make these moves before. It was easier to accept suffering before. It was easier to move away from competition before because it just wasn't as intense. But because it wasn't as intense and because it was easier, the move to the side, the expansion was smaller. It was small. It was a little bit of suffering, a little bit of competition, and a little bit of expansion. And then a little bit more, and a little bit more suffering, and embracing that, moving away from a little bit bigger expansion, right? We've been increasing intensity. It's like this wave is increasing in amplitude, right? And now we are at this precipice. We are at a period of unprecedented intensity of competition and suffering. And what that means is we are in the midst of, about to, and currently experiencing, it's underway. We are in transition, but we are about to experience an explosion, the likes of which life on this planet has certainly never seen. I am pretty sure the universe has never seen anything like this. We are about to experience an explosive, lateral, expansive movement I can only describe as like the Big Bang. It is that thermonuclear in its intensity and the distance that it's going to travel. And I believe that this is the one that sort of levels it out. That from here, we've reached an intensity that is enough. It's kind of like breaking through the atmosphere. I don't know, being on a swing, we've had a lot of this back and forth, a lot of this up and down, whatever it is, this compression and jumping, the compression and then the expansion. And it's been like we've been bouncing or swinging or something, and we've been building up, every time we get a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. And this is the one that breaks us loose from this. That we have jumped high enough to fall low enough that this next compression, the jump from this, is explosive enough to blow us through the roof. The expansion of evolution, the lateral, the growth. This is growth. The horizontal branching expansion will be unprecedented. And that expansion is symbiotic and cooperative. It is an expansion that values diversity overall, that understands inherently diversity is strength. Diversity ensures the longevity and the well-being of all. This is what old growth forests know. This is why old growth forests, which start in this colonization period where it's really a lot of weeds, it's a lot of fast growing bushes and some trees and other things, but fast growing resource hogs that spread, and they have a very important role. They're preparing the soil, and they're drawing other animals to this land, birds and stuff, to help prepare the soil too, so that eventually the specific resources that those plants have been competed for are in such short supply that things have to change. They're forced to adapt or die, which is not a big deal because plants know that they're all the same organism, even in their different expressions of self. They're aware that they're all the same, that this is one communal existence. And in their death, they make room for new plants that were softer, gentler, couldn't really compete for resources the way these other ones did, but they're here now that the soil's been prepared, now that the ground has been cleared, they're here to work together. And now this forest starts to really take root. This incredible diversity of life happens. And sustainability is built in to them. It's not something they have to figure out or try to do. It is understood that old growth forests are the most sustainable communities. They support one another, they're interwoven deeply, interdependent, symbiotic relationships. And they're really only taken out by natural disasters, a massive fire, a landslide. But even that is a part of the earth just clearing ground for a stronger new version of this, right? It's a part of this wave. It's a part of, we got up here, okay, we're gonna drop it further so we can get a little higher. We're gonna clear this out again and go down here. This is a natural process unfolding. And now is simply the time. The conditions are absolutely perfect for this. For the flowering of consciousness, the flowering of all consciousness through humanity. We are one interconnected being, and even beyond that, we're one interconnected life form, and we are one life. We are one life experiencing itself through this many-formed vessel that is like a great tree, but a tree with such diversity of components that many of them are not recognizable as part of the tree. They are. There are more than leaves and branches and flowers here. But this beautiful, diverse life form is an expression of being. And all of it actually is birthed from this deeper, sort of more esoteric experience and desired experience of sensation and sensing. This is just kind of the result, and it continues to feed and fuel that. There's more to sense. So more sensation can come through in more ways here, and so there's more to be sensed. It's a blooming of sensation. Really, that's what's happening. All of this surface stuff is just the surface. It's the juice, the real juice, the fuel. What's really going on is underneath that is experience. More variety of experience, more variety, more intensity of sensation. Stronger desire on both parts, because they both desire, because they are both alive and conscious. Sensation wants to be sensed. Sensing wants sensation. And this is a feeling journey, an endless feeling journey. I don't know that journey is even the right word. Maybe dance is better, because journey implies inherently that we're going somewhere. It's a dance. This is an endless, delicious dance. We're not going anywhere except deeper into bliss, deeper into divine ecstasy. But we're here. We are right where we've always been. This is where the dance happens. This is it. This is the dance floor. We're in the dance. We're doing the dance. We're not going anywhere except for deeper into the dance. And that is perfect. That is delicious. I don't know how much, if any, sense this is going to make. And that's okay. It's not about sense. It's not about, there's not even anything really being accomplished here. This is just an expression of experience for the desire of experiencing the expression. Embracing all sensation as desired and allowing it to be so. It just changes it. It changes the experience of existence. It changes the experience of the sensation. To embrace it as desired and allow it to be so and allow it to be pleasurable changes the experience of all sensation into one that is pleasurable. It is deeply enjoyable. It's satisfying in a way that cannot be described. It is experiencing duality from the place of non-duality and the joy of that, realizing its collapse into itself without homogenizing. It's enjoying, it's appreciating diversity and distinctness and individuation, but recognizing, seeing clearly the interdependence and the interwovenness, mingling of all of it. That there is a seed of each in the other, each side is within the other, and it is this beautiful, endless dance. And it's really, really good. That's the weakest, flattest, saddest words ever to use. There's no... That's the understatement of every century. The centuries upon centuries. The understatement of all time. Anyway. That's it. I am satisfied in this sensation of this expression. And I have to pee now, so I'm gonna go do that. Have a beautiful time being with and within whatever sensation is arising for you presently. It is there to please you. It is there to love you. It is there to be loved by you, which really is the most pleasing thing of all, to love. But God, what a brilliant thing it is to love and be loved. To realize that mutual movement, that sharing of precisely matched energy. And every moment is here to be that. It is that. It is matched to you. For your desire, for your enjoyment, your pleasure, your loving. And it is loving you. It is loving you as consciously as you are loving it, with as much life and vibrancy and sensation and awareness as you are, truly. I love you. Take it easy.